Hey, welcome back guys, this is Crazy Welder and I'm going to be doing a review of my capture devices, which you can see in front of me right here. And I wanted to do this video because I've got a couple here and they all kind of have different functions and there are different reasons as to why I bought them. And all of them have their strengths and all of them have their weaknesses, and I figured since some of you don't have the option to perhaps have all of them or may not want to have all of them, but also may want to have certain features that others don't necessarily have, I'm going to give you an overview of the software, I'm going to give you an overview of the hardware options that you have available for you, and also the inputs and outputs that these devices do have. So, to start off, I have the HD60 PVR, and this is not the gaming edition, but it is the one that comes with the optical audio input, as that's not an option that some of the base models have, but I wanted that one specifically because I wanted to be able to record videos from my original Xbox console and to be able to still have digital audio in the process. So the nice thing about the HD PVR2 is that it actually allows you to have component video input. Now the Avermedia Live Gamer Pro, which is above it, actually does have an input very similar to that, but it does not have the optical audio input, so you only stuck with analog as far as the older consoles go. So for example, if you have a PS2 or you happen to have a GameCube that may have optical output options available, you won't be able to record in digital audio from those consoles. Now what you may notice right away over here is the size difference between all of these right here. And to go over which ones are here, you have the HD PVR2 at the bottom, the Avermedia Live Gamer Portable, and the Elgato HD Game Capture 60 up on top, which is their 60 FPS game capture device. Now what you may notice is that the Elgato is by far the smallest device and easily by far the most pocketable. If I'm to compare my hand to each device, as you can see, I don't have a particularly big hand, but the HD PVR is by far the biggest, and while you can put it in a backpack generally, probably not something that you can carry around too easily. The Live Gamer Portable is a pretty small device, and then the Elgato is almost just the size of my palm there. So pretty decently portable device. You can take it to your friend's house and do recording there. And that's kind of the next step, which is that the HD PVR, it's actually a pretty hefty device. I mean, there's a lot of space on your desk is going to get taken up if you're going to use it. And something else to take into account with the HD PVR2 is that you actually have this extra AC adapter that you're going to have to use, and that's going to take up extra space. It's also going to take up a power slot, and that's sort of the downside with the HD PVR2, which is that you're going to need to have a power outlet next to it to be able to actually operate the device. Now, another hardware difference is in that the Avermedia Live Gamer Portable is actually able to support SD cards. Now, I'm not going to remember which ones it is supporting. I'll put that in the description for the video and you can look those up on the website, but you are able to just use it in PC free mode, as they call it, so you won't necessarily have to use the software. So that one you can just take over wherever you want, plug in an SD card, and you'll be able to capture footage on the go. The downside is that it does limit the quality of the video recordings that you make when you end up doing that, because it is capturing to a smaller SD card. So it's going to enable basically much more aggressive hardware compression, so you will get a little bit more artifacting, lower quality video in general. And what I find is that the Avermedia on its lower settings tends to be much more compressed video than the HD PVR2. I have not tested the maximum settings for the bitrate on the Avermedia yet, but I will show you guys some videos at the end of this clip that show you the quality differences between the two running at their maximum capacity. So the differences in terms of bitrate are that the HD PVR does only 40 Mbps, while the Avermedia does 30, and obviously the Elgato does 60. So you get quite a big difference there in terms of video quality output from each of these devices, but they're all meant to do different things. Now, in terms of the inputs here, what you'll see actually is that when you look at the HD PVR, and I'm just going to take it off the wall because this is not where it typically sits, this device should not be on the wall in general. What you'll see here is that It's got the DC in, it's got the USB as it's going to need to be connected to the USB, it's got optical audio in. You can also use an II remote to control the device remotely. There's the AV jack for connecting component cables, and it's got HDMI in and it's got HDMI out. So that's basically the HD PVR2 right here. Now the next one you have is the Avermedia, which has the AV jack on the bottom right here, the two HDMIs coming out this way, and then you can plug in your microphone if you're going remotely, and that's going to go in here. But you can also actually connect the microphone in software mode if you decide to go that way. And up on top you actually have the mode selector, which is computer or computer free. Now the Elgato does things a little bit differently. It actually has the HDMI input on one end, HDMI output on the other, and then the USB is just hanging out on the front end right here to be able to plug into a computer. It does not have any other jacks, and it does not need a power supply either. Now the Elgato also does feature an input for your microphone, and so you're able to still do the microphone in this way. However, I would not recommend going that route. Okay guys, so I'm going to go over the software portion now, and this is the Rec Central or Recentral. I don't know what the exact name for it would be for the Avermedia Live Gamer Portable. Now you have a couple of options here. It's a really nicely designed kind of view, and there are a couple of things here, and it's able to also control the Avermedia I believe card, the built-in card that you can get, or the onboard card for your computer. Now, you can switch between those easily by just going into here. However, you've got a couple of settings here, which is the streaming wizard. If you're one of the people that's going to be doing streaming stuff, will help you set that up very easily. Very nice that it's able to let you get to that very quickly right here. It's got one-click settings. It's also got the advanced options on this little wheel right here, and it immediately lets you know what the default profile is currently. As you can see, my video source is HDMI, audio is also HDMI, and you're able to select different formats that it records in. I believe the most common one that it records in is .ts. Now, there's a little quirk here with Sony Vegas, which is that Vegas does not like the TS files from Avermedia, so it's probably best if you actually record in MP4 instead. Now, there is resolution right here, which is 1920 by 1080. And my video bitrate has been currently set to 2 Mbps. Now, I did actually not get it right, which is that it's not at a maximum of 30 Mbps for the Avermedia Live Gamer Portable. It is capable of going up to 60, which is pretty high quality, but again, you're still going to be limited to 30 frame per second captures, unlike the Elgato Game Capture HD60. Now you can set your audio bitrate as well. It goes pretty high, and you've got the button hotkey to select your recordings as well. Now on the left here you've got a bulletin which lets you know basically news and anything that's going on with the software. The capture button allows you to modify your settings and also just to push the button to start the capture. The streaming obviously takes you to the wizard that will get your stream set up, and this nice little button right here will just take you straight to your videos wherever they are to be able to quickly access them for editing, for example. Now, for the sake of this, I'm going to go into the advanced view here so you can kind of check out some more settings that are available to you. As you can see, you can select from different settings as far as what platform you're using, be it PC or game console. You can select your video source and change the color range on it if you want to. You've got different options such as the capture device you're going to use, the sound that you're going to receive, which right here you'll change to, for example, your sound card if you have one on your computer. And the nice thing is that you can have a microphone that you directly plug into the device, or you can use an onboard one, and it smartly actually detects the C Media USB headset that I have in my possession, which is really nice to have. Now, you can set the microphone settings to be always on, or instead you can actually just have it so that it picks it up whenever you start to talk. I personally prefer to just have it always on. Now up in here you can select the different video formats available. In this case it is recording in FLV. The resolution again is 1920 by 1080, and as I've showed you guys earlier, you can actually go all the way down to 60 Mbps on this. Now the audio bitrate can go pretty high, up to 256, which is not bad. Again, frame rate is limited to 30 if you're recording in 1920 by 1080, but it will go up if you choose to go into a setting such as you know, a 720p type setting, for example, where you can go up to 60 frames per second on this capture device. You also have quite a few different settings here for streaming as well, so you can immediately select something that's a balanced setting, a stable setting, which will probably have a lot of compression, or you can go for quality, which is definitely going to depend mostly on your internet there. Now, the only issue is that as soon as you hit ready here, you're not going to be able to change these settings while the device is running, but that's usually not a problem. Now, in here, I'm going to go over the HD PVR2, and I apologize for the inception happening in the background here as I'm doing the video. But this is the new Hauppauge capture application. It used to be primarily showbiz when the device first launched, but you do have quite a few settings here. As you can see, you've got the recording button up here, which you can push. Alternatively, you can also push on the record button on top of the HD PVR2 itself. However, this is pretty convenient if you're going on the PC. You've got a couple of file formats here to choose from, which is M2, TS, TS, and MP4. There's a nice little counter for how big the video is currently. You can also select which inputs you're going to be using. So in this case, again, I'm also on HDMI, but you can change to AV in. And from there, of course, you can also do component and composite inputs as well. Audio can be optical, you know, it can be digital, or it can be analog. As with this device, it supports quite a few options there. As you can see, you can change the microphone input. In this case, I have my C-Media USB headphones. And this is where I believe this software has the upper hand on the Avermedia software, in that I'm actually able to adjust the settings for the game audio versus the voice versus the PC audio from the recording, which is really great. Now, the video quality settings on this are actually pretty interesting, because if you set it to variable, even though the maximum is 14 megabits here, you're actually able to seemingly go higher when it's in variable. I don't know how much, but it certainly seems to be a fairly high quality, and the compression is not too bad. Now, when you do select the constant setting, typically what's going to happen is that you're going to only get that particular quality setting, and it will not go higher. And what that means is you will get some artifacting. The downside to using the variable setting is that it will downgrade the video quality slightly in darker areas, as the software kind of quote-unquote smartly decides that those are areas where it doesn't necessarily need the high video quality settings to be enabled. Now, down here, you're able to take a screenshot very quickly of whatever you're doing, and you also have the sound settings to be able to hear yourself in this preview pane. I don't recommend doing that here, as you will get an echo, but it is pretty useful to have that going on when you do start editing within this particular interface here. Now, I will go back and show you the advanced settings in a little bit, but let me go and show you a couple things here. So, for example, in here you have the built-in editor, which is really convenient because you can quickly just kind of cut and edit your video, and you can then export it to an MP4. You can change the file name and throw it into a different folder. From there on, you can also take whatever editing that you've just made and upload it directly to YouTube, and you link your YouTube account within the Hauppauge Capture application. Now, over here, you have the streaming options available for you. Again, very similar settings to what you saw out there before, and you can select the stream quality up in here. There's a couple of options available to you, and I believe the Hauppauge comes with some streaming service kind of pre-bundled, I believe, so you do get a couple of months of it, but I'm not sure if that offer is still available, because I bought my device back in 2012, so it's been a couple of years. It may be that the Hauppauge's Rocket PVR, I believe is what it's called now, is the one that actually has that bundle currently. Now, if you go into the settings here, you can see that you can set the directory where the videos and where the photos go. Now, you do also have the ability to change the video decoding in here, which is how you're going to see the video around here. And you can also have your webcam actually face you, and you can record the webcam at the same time as you're doing the recording of your game. So if you're one of those Let's Players, or you happen to be doing a lot of PC tutorials, this is a very nice setting to have in here. You also have the ability to insert your own watermark, which is kind of a nice feature of this software, but it's kind of outdated now because you can have the same feature on YouTube if YouTube is your choice. If you are, however, going with something like Vivo and you do want a watermark, this is a great option for you to explore within this software. Now, moving on here, showing you the advanced settings this time around. As you can see, you've got a couple of options for scaling here, and you can select different output resolutions and output frame rates. And the nice thing here is that you're able to basically have different input type content and then have different output frame rates for it. As you can see, it tells you what kind of conversions it can do. Now, all of these devices, the Hauppauge HD PVR, the Avermedia, and the Elgato, are able to do upscaling, but the nice thing is that the Avermedia and the Hauppauge are actually able to do upscaling specifically from older content. So for example, if you're running something like my old Xbox through the HD PVR, even though the quality of the game maybe it's something like 480p, it's actually able to take it up to my 1080p monitor. Even though it's upscaled and stretched, it actually still looks pretty nice. You do have a couple of different settings for the video encoder. It will tell you what kind of profile to use, what kind of latency you're going to have, and also how many passes it's going to do on the video, and also control the aspect ratio as well. You can change the color settings in here. As you can see, you've got a couple to play around with. If you don't like the way that things are looking, you can adjust that. Now, typically what I found is that adjusting these while you record or doing an audio session, for example, will tend to crash the software, so I do not recommend messing around with any of these in here in general, but especially the video settings. And as you can see, actually here in audio, you can have quite a few audio settings, but it goes up slightly higher than the Avermedia option, up to 384. Now, you can also downscale some of the higher quality audio if you decide to go with the AAC format, and you've got a couple of settings in there. And again, you can also change the TS audio formats as well. You've got a couple options for boosting analog audio quality, or if it's being too quiet. You've got HDMI AC3 support, which you can choose to disable. There's multiple audio tracks that you can choose as well. And again, you've got options for AC3 in here also. Now, you've got a few options for choosing the decoder in here as well, and this is primarily useful if you end up wanting to use your own personal audio decoder as opposed to what's built in. I usually wouldn't mess around with these settings too much unless you're not particularly keen on the quality or you're using a very good external microphone. Now, the one that I have is just a pretty standard microphone on my Sennheiser headphones, so it's not great, but you can also set the microphone latency in here, which is a great feature that, again, I believe the Avermedia software kind of lacks in comparison to the Hauppauge. Now, you also have a couple of options here for the HD PVR settings in here, and it's pretty nice to have these, and typically I would want to suggest that you use the settings for your monitor when you are using it in PC mode, as I do most of the time, because otherwise what's going to end up happening is when you turn off your computer, it tends to keep the monitor kind of semi-on, and that tends to use a lot of power, so I would not recommend going that route. Now, webcam settings will typically take you to the settings for whatever your webcam provider is, whatever company it is that makes your webcam, and that will allow you to mess around with the different video settings there and where you want to place it on your screen.